Hello again and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio. I'm Dave, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about picking technique and technique in general. It might end up turning into a little bit of a soapbox, but let's start off with the lesson part first before I go off on one. The thing that I kind of want to focus on here is the idea of alternate picking. Because if you're wanting to play, any sort of speed for like playing lead lines, particularly when you're getting into like shred guitar and all that sort of stuff, one of the most important things to have in your technique arsenal is alternate picking. The idea that when you hit a string with your pick, you're playing a downstroke, and then the next note you play with an upstroke, then a downstroke, then an upstroke. So the idea is that you've got a very measured sort of movement with your hand, down, up, down, up, down, up. And as you start to build the speed, you can kind of get your picking hand and your fretting hand locked in together. Building up the speed just becomes a case of increasing the regular motion in your picking hand. You're not playing like down, 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 up, 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 where it gets a little bit more staggered. It's a very down, up, down, up, down, up sort of thing. And that's the way I was taught. The guy who taught me alternate picking was very, very strict about playing strictly down, up, down, up. And it worked for him. He was a phenomenal guitar player. He could play so fast, so accurate. But I actually found the way that he taught me was in some ways a little bit inefficient. Because what he would say, and I'm going to kind of exaggerate my picking hand action so you can see what I'm talking about. You say you're playing like, say, 3 notes per string, sort of thing. You would play down, up, down, and then because you've got to play up, what he would do is you take your pick underneath that 5th string, so you can play the next note with an upstroke, then a downstroke, then an upstroke. So what you're playing is very strictly down, up, down, up, down, up, and so on. Like I say, that worked for him, and I could play like that, but I found it a little bit inefficient because you've got that idea you're going for that second upstroke, you're taking your pick underneath the string to bring it back up again for the sake of playing strict alternate picking. Now the approach that I prefer to take is to play down, up, down, and then just keep going and use a downstroke for the next string, then an upstroke, then a downstroke, then I get on the next string and use a downstroke again. So it's kind of not strictly down, up, alternate picking, but it's still a fairly strict alternate. It's like motion that I'm only going, like I'll go down when I need to go down and the pick comes up when I need to go up. If you see what I mean. I just found that was a little bit more efficient. I guess it's related in a way to the idea behind economy picking or sweep picking. The idea that you try to move your hand in it is using as little motion as possible. So if you're playing like an arpeggio across the top 4 strings, you would just be playing that with all downstrokes. Then play going back with all upstrokes, pull off. So that's just all downstrokes, all upstrokes. Economy picking. So yeah, getting back to the idea of lead lines, what I tend to use is like an economic version of alternate picking. Now, why I'm kind of mentioning this is to get you out of the idea that there's like one right way of doing it. So the guy who taught me alternate picking using the strict alternate, down, up, amazing player, very, very fast, very articulated, but and very accurate in his playing. But it just that just didn't work for me. I prefer the slightly more economical way of doing it. And when I'm teaching, I don't necessarily say to somebody, this is the way that you have to play, because everybody's approach or their, even like their physiology is going to be slightly different. So if to give you another example, this is kind of where we'll move away from just talking about alternate picking, just talk about technique in general. If there's a guitarist that I really like, and there's something about the way that they play that I really admire, and I want to try and figure out what they're doing, kind of emulate that and incorporate it into my own playing. I'll watch them. There's plenty of videos of guitarists that I like on YouTube, and I can kind of study what they do. Now, I might watch somebody like Paul Gilbert, amazing guitar player, and he's, you know, he can shred like nobody else. But if you look at him, if you look at his hands, he's got an incredibly long pinky finger. His little finger, his pinky, is roughly the same length as his ring finger. Look at my hands. Now, I'm not like the biggest guy in the world. I don't have small hands. Certainly my fingers are kind of skinny. I don't have big, you know, sausage fingers. But my pinky is definitely my little finger. It's a good bit shorter proportionally to my ring finger, which means some of the stretches that I might see somebody like Paul Gilbert doing, I just couldn't do because I don't have the length in that finger. I might have to adapt my technique slightly. And so that's kind of the point I'm wanting to make is, you know, you might watch somebody playing in a particular way and you might try to emulate that, but there might be something about your physiology. Now, it might be something really obvious, like, you know, like the length of a finger, or it might just be something about the way that your muscles kind of naturally work, that if you try and follow somebody else's technique, like absolutely precisely, it actually kind of holds you back because you're trying to play kind of against something that's kind of like built into you. So I'd always encourage you to look at somebody else's technique and to try it, certainly. But if you find that there's actually an easier way for you to do something, then adapt and go your own way. That's not to say that in future, as you learn other techniques and the things on the guitar, you might want to do something a little bit differently. Then you just end up in the place where you need to break out of a bad habit. And I know plenty of guitarists who get into that situation with, oh no, I've got into the habit of playing something in a particular way, but now that technique's starting to hold me back and I need to adapt. And they do. They just practice that. I mean, a really good example of this is a guy you'll see on YouTube, Robert Baker. He does some great lessons. And he often does things like, you know, this is a bad habit that I developed and I needed to get out of, or this is a technique that was holding me back. And he kind of shows you that, you know, what the problem was and kind of how he like practiced his way out of it. But the thing that kind of strikes me, at no point in watching Robert Baker's videos prior to that point did I ever think, God, your technique's rubbish because of X. You know, you just have the player, and you know, so it doesn't matter that there's maybe something in your technique that you need to unlearn or you need to adapt. Start, if you just agonize and overanalyze how you play, you'll never get anywhere, I think is kind of what I'm getting at. So don't worry too much about following technique precisely. I was watching some videos, kind of stick with the YouTube theme, a series called Cracking the Code or Breaking the Code. I think it's by a guy called Troy Grady, I think his name was. Sorry if I've misremembered that. Where he really analyses other guitar players' technique. And I was watching one that he'd done on, I think it was Michelangelo Badio, who was an incredibly competent, incredibly fast picker. And in this video, this guy, he was literally watching footage of Michael playing, you know, slowed it down frame by frame, and he was kind of analysing it to this. Oh yeah, if you look, he holds his pick at a particular angle relative to the string, but when he goes to the next string down, he always plays with a slightly different tilt. And he was kind of analysing the technique down to that degree. To the point of, I guess what the point he was trying to get to is, if you want to play as fast as Michelangelo Badio, then you need to think about holding your pick at this particular angle, and then when you play on a different string, you hold it, you pick it at another angle, and all this sort of stuff. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but what I sometimes worry about is people seeing that and say, okay, if I play, you know, precisely like that and I pick up all the little nuances of somebody else's technique, then I'll be able to play like them. You'll only be able to play like them if A, you put in all the practice hours that they do, and also if like your physiology is the same as theirs. You know, you're gonna like relative strength between forearm and wrist and fingers and whatnot might mean what is more comfortable for them is less comfortable for you. What I would always urge you to do is use somebody else's technique as a starting point, but be aware of how it feels for you to play and be prepared to adapt. There's no right way or wrong way to do it. There's like a general way you should be playing, you know. Like if you want to play fast, you need some sort of alternate picking. You're never going to be able to shred playing exclusively downstrokes or playing exclusively upstrokes. You need that down up to be able to get the speed there. But whether it's strictly down up or a little bit more economical, the way that I kind of find is more comfortable, either way is valid. At the end of the day, what matters is the music that you make, the notes that you play, and how they affect the listener. Nobody should be playing guitar purely to demonstrate the technique. What matters is when I hear somebody playing a guitar, it gives me some sort of positive response, you know, because I like it, like what I'm hearing, and it makes me happy, or it excites me, or it might even be a positive negative emotion. You know, it makes me sad, or it makes me a little bit anxious because there's tension in the playing, but it elicits some sort of emotion. That's what the music's about. I don't want it to be a negative emotion like, oh my god, that sounds horrible, please stop. But what I'm reacting to is the notes that I hear, the music that I'm hearing being played. I'm not sitting and enjoying technique. The technique is just a means to an end. I was talking to somebody about this just the other day, actually. You notice on my YouTube channel, on Facebook page, and on Instagram now and again, I just do little jam videos. And I never used to. My YouTube was exclusively lesson content. And it was just, what happened was somebody made a comment about, you do all these lesson videos, we never actually hear you play. You never just play the guitar. And I happened to be sitting with a friend when this comment came in on Facebook, and we just got to discussing this, and they kind of made a point. So, well, yeah, if you're doing all these lesson videos but you're never actually playing the guitar, how do people actually know that what you're telling them is valid advice? How do they know that you're actually a competent guitar player? So, oh yeah, that's a point. Actually, I probably need to play guitar a little bit, just kind of show, yeah, this is what I can do. I can play guitar, so it kind of gives some credibility to my lessons. It's a bit like if I was watching a video on woodworking and someone was showing me how to use a saw, how to use a hammer and chisel. How do I know that technique's sound? Well, what I wanted to do is show me a piece of furniture that he's built, or guitar that he's made. So, oh yeah, right, you've got these woodworking techniques, that's a thing that you made, and kind of get the two to relate together. So that was kind of why I started playing, but and doing like jam videos and stuff. And I got some positive comments on those. People seem to like them, so I do them, I guess, partly for people's entertainment and partly just to demonstrate that I can play the guitar. But what I'm certainly not doing is showing off a technique, like showing how fast I can play, or how emotionally I can play, or how clever I can be with harmonies and lead lines and all that sort of thing. It's not about that. And there are a lot of people, I think, on the internet who do videos and they're just purely demonstrating how fast they can shred or how flash a technique that they've got. And to me, that's a little bit wrong. It shouldn't be about just showing off your technique. It should be to entertain, or to educate, inform, or whatever. It's not just about showing off. And these people might say, oh, but people like my videos and and give me thumbs ups and all that sort of thing. I would say, if you're the sort of person who's watching videos just to marvel at somebody's technique, you probably need to rethink your outlook on the guitar. It's nice to be impressed by somebody doing something, but that's not what the guitar's about. It's not about like some sort of I don't know, like a circus sideshow where you yeah. I mean, here's an example. I used to spend quite a bit of time in London before we got locked down and I couldn't travel anymore. One of the things I really enjoy doing in London is hanging around Covent Garden, because they've got some awesome street entertainers. And you get the guys there who can do juggling. Now, I can't juggle for toffee, but if I watch somebody juggling, I can kind of appreciate the technique. But what I like about like the street entertainers in Covent Garden is some guys do juggling, but they'll be juggling with different objects and they make a comedy routine out of it, and there's a whole bit to it. It's not just about, look at me, I can juggle 3 things, 4 things, 5 things at once. So there's a lot of technique underpinning what they do. What really matters is the show, and it should be the same thing for guitar. You're learning technique to be able to play the guitar, but at the end of the day, what you've got to do is make music that elicits some sort of response, some positive response from the listener. It's not just about showing, oh, look how fast I can play, look how flush my technique is, oh, look, I can play with 8 fingers. If you can play with 8 fingers on the fingerboard, that's awesome, but what you should be doing that to create something that's musically valid and somebody wants to listen to, rather than just an exercise and saying, look, I can play with 8 fingers on the fingerboard at the same time. If you're approaching it purely for technique's sake, you're doing it wrong. So I guess the 2 takeaways from this video is, yeah, technique is important. Study other people and take guidance from them, but be prepared to adapt things so just for what works best for you, and then that all becomes part of you developing your own personal style. And the second takeaway is, remember, the technique is just a means to an end. It's not about just showing what you can do. It's about creating music for someone to listen to, or when you're jamming with other people, interacting and having fun is a creative thing. It's not about showing off. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. I hope you found that useful. If you did, please click like down there. If you really enjoyed it and you want to see some other videos that I post onto the channel, then please click subscribe. There's also like a bell icon. If you click that as well, you get notified as soon as I post a new video. And I think, according to what I've been learning recently about the YouTube algorithm, it counts better for getting my videos seen, and it does things for my subscriber counts and all sorts of things. So if you want to click subscribe, click the bell as well, please. You're welcome to leave a comment. I don't always see comments left on videos though, so if you've got a specific question you want to ask me, whether it's about guitar playing, guitar equipment, music theory, anything at all, you're better off going here, filling that form in, send your question in. That way I'm guaranteed to see it and get around to answering your question in a future video. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.